80 WDBO, or leave an open mic in the WDBO app. We'll get to that segment in the second hour of the show. Now the Magic Mechanic himself, Larry Perry.
All right, let's. Who do we have on deck here? Who's next up?
We have George from Orlando who has a Mercury, and he needs a valve adjustment. George, you're live with the Magic Mechanic.
Hey, Larry, this Coop here, buddy.
Hey, George, how you doing this weekend?
Well, I tell you, real good. Larry, on my Mercury 4.6 engine, is the valves ever need adjusting?
No, they are self-adjusting. They're hydraulic.
Oh.
It's not really the best way to describe it is on that particular engine. It doesn't really use a lifter per se that moves up and down. You know what it does is it uses what we call a follower, and it just sets in a bore and it gets oil pressure behind it. And that's what keeps a perfect adjustment between the rocker arm and the camshaft. Now, I will tell you this. On the 4.6s, which were just absolutely great engines, I have seen where vehicles that don't get driven a lot, where the fuel will set too long and maybe start breaking down. And what will happen is a vehicle that has set for any length of time, somebody will go and start it up, and that old fuel will go through the fuel injectors and be dispersed onto the valves. And then when you shut it off, there's moisture in the fuel. And what it'll do is it will actually start rusting up the valves in the valve guide, and a valve will stick. And when it does, the camshaft will come along because there's too much clearance, and it'll literally just knock the rocker arm right off of the follower or the lifter, and then you'll have a dead cylinder. And sometimes when that happens, it can actually bend a valve too. So you know, you don't do. How many miles are on your car now, George?
68,000.
68. No miles at all. Listen, you're not putting a whole lot of miles on it. Are you running just regular ethanol fuel in it?
Well, or Shell, we don't.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to tell you, in your case, and you may already be doing this because you're an Amsoil guy. You might want to start treating your fuel. If you've got one tank of fuel in your car for over 2 or 3 months, George, it would be a good idea to add the Amsoil PI in with your fuel. What that will do is it'll give that fuel some extra lubrication and help lubricate your valve train. You see what I'm saying? So that way you wouldn't wind up with a situation like I had just described, because the valves will stick, and then when they do, it'll just knock the rocker arm right off the thing. And like I said, when that happens, it can bend a valve as well. And it's not anything wrong with the engine. It's just that those valves don't like moisture in your fuel. And with that ethanol in there and a vehicle that doesn't get a great, huge amount of driving, it can be detrimental to the engine. And it'll just surprise you one day. You know, when it comes to a lot of the older engines, on some of the older Mercedes and stuff like that, with the primitive fuel injection systems a lot of them came with, I actually recommend folks to use some 2-stroke outboard marine oil in with their gasoline, just for lubrication for the valve system in these vehicles and to help protect the fuel system from the ethanol. So in some cases, the lubrication for these fuel systems and the valve train becomes extremely, extremely important. And a lot of folks don't know this. But in your case, I think, keeping some Amsoil PI, which has got a lot of benefit. It helps lubricate the whole entire upper valve train of the vehicle. And in your case, see, that engine's not a direct injection motor. It still uses port injectors. So whatever comes out of those, the injectors, when it sprays fuel, it's going right on that intake valve. So when you got that going against you, you get some older fuel in there, some fuel that's starting to separate a little bit. It's when you've driven it and you shut it off, whatever moisture there is will actually start rusting up around the intake valve and the valve guide. And it'll stick that valve when you go to restart it, and the extra clearance will knock the rocker arms off of it. So we want to try to avoid that. But as far as a maintenance valve adjustment goes on that engine, there isn't one. Those are made to take care of their own. So they're what we would consider self-adjusting and no maintenance needed as far as the valve adjustment goes. George, like always, it's absolutely a pleasure to talk to you on Saturday afternoons, my friend.
Hi, folks. Larry Perry here. For automotive information, maybe you got automotive questions on cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Maybe you're thinking about purchasing a used vehicle, and maybe you just want my opinion. Tune in to the Magic Mechanic radio show every Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. on wdbo.com. Also, tune in to our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll all get together, maybe fix a few cars while we're at it.